Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a review of a drama from Denmark. This is spoken in the English language, released in the year 1996, directed by Lars von Trier. This movie is called Breaking the Waves. So Breaking the Waves is set in Scotland. You've got this young woman who is named Bee. Bee has mental problems. She's a very simple person and she's found love with Jan. Now Jan is this mysterious guy who, they haven't known each other for very long, but Bee has always prayed that she would find love. She's from a very deeply religious community. Her mother goes by the word of God, and she has a very close friend who is also a nurse. So everyone's looking out for Bee because, as I said, she is a very simple type of person and she is a very innocent person, and a lot of people think that she doesn't know what she's getting herself in for when she's marrying Jan. But they marry each other and things go a little bit pear-shaped when Jan has to go away on this oil rig, because he works on this oil rig. So Bee is really struggling to come to terms with this because she is absolutely obsessed with this guy, but she has to learn to try and deal with it, but she's not dealing with it very well. So there's an accident that happens on the oil rig that results in Jan becoming paralyzed, and this puts a massive strain on the marriage. And then Jan tells Bee that because they can't make love anymore, he wants her to go and make love to other men and then come back to the hospital room and tell him about it, and that's going to substitute for him making love to her. So it's a very warped idea, but Bee believes that every time she does this, that Jan is going to improve. And so she has this very warped idea that she is hell-bent on following, and the rest of the other people outside this marriage, they start to suspect that yes, things are going down a very deep and disturbing route that is going to prove very dangerous for Bee. So what happens to Bee is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Breaking the Waves. As far as Lars von Trier is concerned, I really hadn't heard of this film. Now, there's another movie I haven't seen called Dogville. And so those two movies, as far as Lars von Trier are concerned, the only movies that I really haven't seen of his, and the rest of his movies I absolutely loved. And I think that, Lars von Trier has gone through depression himself, and that's why his films always feel like they come from a guy who understands the topics he is dealing with. And so Breaking the Waves is no different. I would say that this is probably his most depressing film he's ever made. And I just thought it come from a guy who understands the topic of depression, that understands the topic of heartbreak, and just the dark side of humanity. And it captures it so well in Breaking the Waves. As I said, absolutely devastating movie. It is a movie about love and the power of love and how obsessive love can be and how dangerous love can be as well. You got Bee, who is played by a phenomenal effort by Emily Watson. How she didn't win an Oscar for this role, I don't know. She plays this very simple person, very innocent person, and when she marries Jan, she believes that she's found the happiness. She's thanking God, and you start to believe that something is a little bit wrong with this woman, because she's absolutely obsessed with this guy, and when he has to go away, she's torn to pieces. So then when he gets paralyzed, she believes that she knows the way to make him better by going around and sleeping with other men, and that's really ruining her reputation. So it is a very morbid sort of love story, but it's a very sad one as well. I just couldn't help but feel so sorry for Bee, and the people around her, the very deeply religious community around her, were just being so harsh towards her. And then the end of the movie, I'm not going to give anything away, but it is just one of the most downbeat experiences I have ever had. The acting, as I said, from Emily Watson was absolutely fantastic. Stellan Skarsgård plays Jan. He does a very good job. You can sense that he's absolutely devastated by his accident, and he starts to become this evil sort of person. He's manipulating Bee, and the relationship between the two of them, you think to yourself, well, it probably shouldn't have been there to start with. That Jan has this idea of venting his frustrations out and destroying Bee at the same time. So it is a very twisted love story, but it's a love story that I thought was told very well, and it's looking at the bad side of life. It's looking at the side of life that a lot of people like to turn the other cheek to. You've got romantic comedies, you've got the living happily ever after you get married, all those movies that make us feel good. But I actually think that's further from reality than these types of movies. This is the type of movie that shows you the complete opposite. This is the movie that shows you the things that can happen, and more often than not, they actually do happen. And it's something, as long as you you can turn your other cheek to it. You can say it doesn't exist as much as you want, but it's always there. And I think Lars von Trier is not afraid to really look at this aspect of life, and he absolutely nails it. As I said, this is a movie that you have to watch in a good mood. It's going to make you feel absolutely devastated by the end of it. It's going to suck out all of your energy. It definitely did that to me. I just finished watching it. I have to review it now while I've got all these thoughts in. It's a movie with a lot of themes. You know, it depicts religion as well, how devastating and destructive religion can be. You've got these people who basically outcast this poor girl, and it's just the innocence of this main character being corrupted by the outside influences, which is just devastating to see, because B doesn't know how to cope with it, and she's just basically in a situation where it's either sink or swim, and unfortunately she sinks, and you just can't help but, you know, feel so sorry for this girl. Now, it is a very long movie, 2 hours and 20 minutes. If you've got a low attention span, you're not going to like this one. This is not an overly graphic film as far as violence is concerned, but it does have some pretty graphic sort of sex scenes. But the beauty of Lars von Trier, he uses these sex scenes not in an arousing way. He uses it in the ugliness. As I said, everything about this guy in his movies is ugly, and it just shows, you know, the sex scenes are incredibly awkward between B, especially when she goes and makes love, or not makes love, but has sex with these other people, and she believes that she's doing something really good, but in the eyes of others, she's just a tramp. She's just, you know, a slut. And that, once again, is very devastating. It's the corruption of a very simple mind, and how, you know, dangerous that can be. So the movie does get split into chapters, which is something typical of Lars von Trier. I didn't like the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was a little bit out of place. That is something very rare for Lars von Trier. His other movies, I think he really nails the soundtrack, but the soundtrack in this film was a little bit off. But that's the only real criticism I have of this movie. The script, once again, is absolutely fantastic, as is the case with all other Lars von Trier films. The way that this movie is shot is kind of like a shaky sort of camera, so it actually feels like you're a fly on the wall. It actually feels like a very realistic film, and it just feels like you're just watching it in the same room as these characters. So overall, Breaking the Waves is a devastating experience. It's an experience that I would recommend to not everyone. If you've got, you know, if you're faint of heart, if you can't really stomach strong themes, then Breaking the Waves is not for you. Lars von Trier as a whole is not for you. But if you like Lars von Trier and you haven't seen Breaking the Waves, this comes highly recommended. I thought this is very powerful filmmaking, and it's filmmaking that I am not going to forget anytime soon. So overall, for Breaking the Waves, going to give it 4.5 stars. It's coming highly recommended. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.